I just wanted to start out my comments, having covered, commercial, non-commercial, every kind of media you can think of for the last 20 years. I was doing a lot of thinking in preparation for this on how, the two are different in this digital interactive age that we're in. And I have to tell you, and this is good news, that you have the leg up. And the reason is because you've been where new media is all along. You have your roots in the people. You are grassroots oriented. Your stars are perfectly aligned with where the internet is and where the new digital interactive media is taking us. The intimidation factor comes in is how to work with it, how to monetize it, how to get to where you want to be, which is hopefully financially self-sufficient and still true to your principles. And I believe that can be done. Now, the one thing we all have to accept, I think, in having this conversation is that everyone is in the same place. Public media, public broadcasting is in no different place than commercial broadcasting or any other kind of media right now. You're all faced with the same thing. When I sit down with Rupert Murdoch or any of the other big guys over on the traditional media side, they're full of questions, more questions than answers. But again, if you're willing to redefine some of what you're about, if you're willing to redefine concepts that are clearly tied to traditional static analog media, such as advertising, which will no longer be advertising in the new world, it's connecting with your target consumer, then I think that you can make a go of it, but you have to get from here to there. So the first thing I was going to do was to tell you a little bit about a trip back in time that I took just as a coincidence this past weekend. I was cleaning out the attic of our 130-year-old house back in Chicago with the kids, and I ran across a bunch of old analyst reports. And I've always been financially oriented in my reporting. This is called the Blueprint for Media Investment from Merrill Lynch, September 2002. And I found this too late to put it up on a graphic here. But basically, it's got all your little circles, and the circles are according to the size of that media category. And I can tell you it goes from music to radio to games to Euro pay TV, but there isn't one social network on this map. There isn't a social network, there isn't a blog, there isn't anything, there isn't email, nothing of what we consider to be our new media environment today. And this is September 2002. So sometimes the perspective we need, we get from just stepping back a little bit, realizing how far we've come, realizing that, as the previous speakers have said, we're just turned the first corner. There are many to come. And in fact, one of the most exciting things, and if I get excited, it's because the future is so great. I'm working on a book right now that looks out 5 years and tries to look at the changes in the business models and the economics and all that and the creativity. And one of the things you realize is that none of the institutions, none of the corporations, none of the governments anywhere in the world, even Apple, even Google, and they're children of this new media age, have bored down into their legacy structures, into their infrastructures, to really integrate the interactivity and all that goes with it, so that they can actually think it, breathe it, use it for every aspect of their business. When we get to that point, we will have turned the second of many corners, but that's going to take some time. So again, I think this kind of perspective helps when you're saying, oh my gosh, we've got to embrace all this, we've got to change what we're doing, but we still want to be true to who we are. How do we do this? Well, you have wonderful examples already in public broadcasting and NPR. In fact, you have far more progressive examples there than you have almost anywhere else on the commercial broadcasting side. So for that, you should be proud. But what you need to do is to not only make a commitment, but then follow it up with action. What we're here to talk about today is maybe how do we go about that? And whether it means, and I know this is blasphemous to some of you, but clearly there are minds, progressive minds, willing to try some of these things already, whether that means taking some of your content, putting it on a a major clearinghouse online, such as Public Broadcasting has just done with a couple of shows on Hulu.com, which is a Fox, NBC co-enterprise, and they have bookended the shows with 30-second commercials. 30-second commercials, yes, I said 30-second commercials. And they are revenue sharing. Now, the commercials, I think, are kind of going to look historically as commercials have on television, because Hulu.com is from NBC and Fox, and they don't know how to do it any other way. They will figure it out. But say, for instance, you take a sponsorship of one of your programs, okay? And you explain to the sponsor that what you're doing is producing your program of choice, editorial, free-spirited program, take it or leave it. Buy into it, don't buy into it. Somebody will buy into it. And you're connecting with this particular group of consumers. Somebody will want to connect with that target audience, because you can define them so many ways now, right? And so you produce the show that you want. It's editorially, it maintains its integrity. You find sponsors who want to connect with the people who will most likely watch the show, because they're the people who most likely will want their products and services. And that is a wholly capitalistic endeavor of which you don't need to be at all apologetic. And then the consumer who watches a show that's sponsored by all these different companies decides of their own accord to buy into them or not to buy into them. Yes, I want to begin an interactive rapport with this sponsor because I'm interested, it's my decision. No, I don't. And therein lies the secret to making an advertising type commitment connection on the net, because then you will begin a rapport between a company and consumers. They will inevitably, they'll do research, they'll buy into each other, the company will learn from that consumer, they will sell to that consumer. You have e-commerce. You could always go back and say, okay, for every e-commerce transaction that you conduct with any of our constituents, we would like a 10% fee or something like that. There are many ways. I guess what I'm saying is, the long and short of it is, that's one of many ways that I'm trying to model new business initiatives that you can start to embrace that will generate new revenues for you. And as your 15% funding from the government continues to disappear, and as the sponsors and the foundations who now support you try to find new ways to explore the internet, and as the members that you've relied on, okay, are looking for new ways to redefine their relationships, because it is, after all, consumer-centric, they're deciding, you will grow with them in a way where you're still true to your roots. Some of the other models that I've suggested are in the article that's in your packet. And if you're interested, you could take a look at it. But I think more than anything else, this is a time where you really have to come to this open-minded, because you have everything it takes to succeed.